Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone and welcome along to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Round 3 of the Allianz Football League. We're delighted to have Tomás Ó Sé joining myself and Rory to look forward to the weekend's games. How's the form, Tomás?
Good, Jacqui. Busy but good, yeah, and enjoying the league so far and looking forward to the weekend again.
Yeah, no better one to look forward to than Kerry Dublin. And I think anytime the Dubs come to town, it seems to just bring a wiliness out of the Kerry folk. I'm sure you're looking forward to welcoming them down and giving them the full Kerry, full-on spirit this weekend.
I think, look, there's something always, it goes back. Paddy Cullen, yesterday Greva Anam was buried this week, and it goes back to those days, and ever since then there's always been a great relationship off the pitch, healthy relationship on it. There's fierce rivalry there, but there's a great respect. It's a typical Culchie Townie kind of relationship, and I think there's a great respect on both sides over anything. The Dubs love to travel. They love to travel, and they'll be down in huge numbers. I don't think it's on paper, it's not the same Dublin team of 4 or 5 years ago, but at the same rate, there'll always be that competitive edge with Kerry and Dublin. There's sure to be a great atmosphere, and with games like that in Tralee, Austin Sack Park, it's the right place to have it, because you won't fill Killarney even on a good day. There's no lights in Killarney, but you will fill Stack Park and you'll get a good atmosphere inside there. So I would say both camps are looking forward to it, and both camps looking for a win as well, Jacqui. So that'll be huge as well.
Yeah, if you think about it, Rory, the Dubs haven't won in Tralee since 1982. And Tomás is right, like talking about Paddy Cullen and those days. But you're going back to those kind of glory days for the Dubs to have had a lot of success down there. Like the last 2 meetings between the teams have not been that close. But previously, like Tomás is right, this has been a rivalry that has just given us loads over the years.
Loads of different subplots and loads of different stories. But I do think, to go back to your stat there, which is extraordinary, I didn't really know that. That it's been that long since Dublin have had a win in Tralee, and Tralee has tended to be a little bit of a fortress for Kerry. I think this weekend it'll be very, very similar. Both teams coming into it on the back of defeats. Obviously Dublin to Donegal a couple of weeks ago, and Kerry last week at home to Donegal as well, which is, and I know we'll get to Donegal, but that's some opening couple of fixtures by Donegal to beat Dublin at home and Kerry away in their first 2 games. So, I suppose from the point of view of Saturday night, I think it sets it up perfectly. It's live on TV, it's live on RTÉ too. It's the biggest fixture in Gaelic football, arguably the biggest fixture in Gaelic games. It's the Townie versus the Culchie. It has all of those elements to it. I think the Sigerson last night, seeing as it was contested between 2 Dublin teams, showed us that there's plenty of more footballers coming through in Dublin, and we won't be getting any violins out for them just yet. We saw a midfield battle between Ethan Dunn, Greg McEnany, both Skerry's lads, and they were up against Peter Duffy out of Coola. So they have really good options to pick from. I don't know if any of those players will play this weekend, and we don't know if David Clifford will play. And look, we're all looking forward to seeing him, and maybe Tomás can shed some light. That's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to most, and we may not see it this weekend. But to see Clifford under these new rules is what I think a lot of Gaelic football fans are really anticipating, and I think he's licking his lips at the thought of a little bit more space, a little bit more early ball, a little bit more opportunity to show, just like what Ryan McHugh said last weekend after the Donegal Kerry game, that the new rules have released the good footballers again to a certain extent and allowed the skills of the game kind of come to the fore in a better fashion. And I'd say we're going to see plenty of that again on Saturday night.
Will we see Clifford, Tomás?
Don't know. I honestly don't know, Jacqui. That's not trying to be smart. I think it's interesting what Rory touched on there. the conditions, the rules, the way they are, and I don't know the rules. It's all this word about rules. They're just trying to speed up the game. That's basically what they're trying to do. But I think I saw a stat today that said that there's still more hand passing. It's still in the management's remit to play whatever way they want to play. And I think people are excited to see. Jack O'Connor has always tried to play fast football and kick the ball when. Now, they're not foolish. They won't kick it if it's not on. But these rules will allow conditions that there should be more space if you move it quickly. And I think that's what people are expecting. But I watched Donegal Kerry last weekend. There wasn't a whole pile of kicking on either side into space as such, because the two teams that have impressed me so much you have the opportunity to get 11 bodies back as quick as you can, and the two teams that have been organised better than any team that I've seen so far are Armagh and Donegal. They're just brilliant at it. They can slow down ball down enough, but teams just have to be riskier. They still, I suppose, commit forward. But if teams aren't willing to call their bluff and kick it straight away and have an outlet to kick it, then you'll get this hand passing stuff still. So the conditions
But are
there
these not
to
the
kick it.
two teams to do that, though, Tomás? Like
will,
Kerry
I
and
think.
Dublin are the ones who want to do that, you know?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I still enjoyed the Donegal Kerry game. I think all teams, even the Sigerson game last night in the old rules, like there's still two teams committed to moving the ball quickly forward. And I think the problem happens when teams try to slow it down more often than they used to. That's the issue. But I do think, Dublin and Kerry will kick it. I think you'll have more open games, but they you're not going to win in All Ireland unless you have a solid defence. And it's like the old mantra, when you don't have the ball, you're trying to take space away from the opposition, and that's what both teams will try to do. But I think everybody's kind of looking forward to David Clifford coming back. But they have other players. They have Paul Murphy hasn't come back. He's injured. Brian Begley's injured. Gavin White was with the Croaks. So they have a few players to introduce, and they'll be eager to get them back. Jack has always tried to do well in Division 1 and set himself up for a championship. So they will be eager to put on a good display on Saturday.
Tomás is right, Rory, as well. I think for either team, a win here does kind of feel like it sets them up in the league as well. Like, I know neither of them desperately need it, but I think they've always enjoyed getting one up in each other, first of all, but also just the position that it might leave them in, where they don't have those relegation fears that maybe some of the other teams that we're going to get onto definitely do.
And I don't think Kerry will want to lose back-to-back games at home. I think that would... Look, I don't think Kerry will have to worry about relegation, but it's a very topsy-turvy league in terms of the performances and the results, because the rules are such a curveball and such a sort of an unknown in all of this, and teams are still obviously feeling their way through it. But we have seen, for instance, on week 1, where Tyrone beat Derry comfortably. There's not too many might have predicted the comfortably part. Then on the second week out, I thought Derry, it was one of the best games of Gaelic football I've ever seen. But I thought Derry actually deserved something out of the game, Tomás. And, they were a little bit unlucky, maybe in some respects. I think Jack O'Connor himself described it as a smash and grab afterwards because they scored 2 late goals. So we have seen results kind of, be very topsy-turvy, there's a lot of flux. But I think the important thing for Kerry on Saturday night, the weather notwithstanding, the forecast isn't great this weekend. Look, it's still February, so that's not necessarily a surprise. But I think from a Kerry perspective, Dublin coming to town, they're at home, under lights, big crowd. It's going to be, a really good atmosphere. Dublin have some players to come back themselves. Who knows whether or not the Coola lads might make a reappearance and whether King Con could be on the field. Wouldn't it be great if Con and Clifford both came on at the same time? Wouldn't that create a brilliant scene just in and of itself? But look, I'm really looking forward to this one. The leagues are starting back this weekend in Dublin. We're actually playing Ballyboden ourselves here in Division 1. And straight afterwards, everyone is going like Kerry Dublin. What a night of Gaelic football. Can't wait.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's not the only big game either, because I do think, Tomás, in Donegal and Armagh, there's another one that has generally served us up some pretty tight, feisty encounters over the last couple of years. And I do think particularly for Kieran McGeeney, it's one that maybe he'll feel he needs to win too. So there's a lot on the line.
Yeah, there's something. I've been very impressed with Armagh since they've come back. I think it's funny, like, because you'll hear in the media Kieran McGeeney and McGuinness complaining about this and that, but they are really focused on what's happening on the field, and their two teams are so well drilled. You've got two of the best managers in the country there, and none of them at the moment seem to want to lose. You know, you see different teams coming into the league, and Jack O'Connor are probably in a different place where trying to get bodies back. Dublin, similar enough. Mayo are struggling away. But Armagh and Donegal have hit the ground running and are using every advantage to get used to these rules. But the way McGuinness plays, say, attacking players, Kieran Moore was at wing back last weekend. I thought he was outstanding. The pace they move the ball with is brilliant. But I mentioned Armagh and how organised they were in terms of getting bodies back. So you could see, and everybody gives out about Armagh, saying, oh, they're defensive. Armagh will move the ball as quickly as anybody if the conditions allow it. And I think that's something that's missed on them down the years. But I'm not sure McGeeney, yeah, he'll want to get one over McGuinness and all that. But I do genuinely think that the key thing for Armagh this year is Ulster. And I think, like, if they had a poor start, people would start questioning in the league. I'm saying, oh, will they have the hunger they're after in All-Ireland? There's nobody questioning that because of the start that they've had, which I think is a bonus. And Donegal have come back refreshed, and people will say that they were back training early and all that. They're in good shape, and very good shape. Last Michael Langan got injured in Clarny, and they were down. Who else as well? They were down a couple of players. It didn't bother them, and McGuinness wasn't too bothered after the game. We've people to slot in. They know their roles, and it should be a cracker because there is a whatever anybody says that the Ulster. There's something about it when they come against each other, and if there's a spark in the game, then it can lead to a brilliant excitement, and I think we'll have that at the weekend.
I think that's probably it more than anything, Rory, that maybe that's why Kieran McGeeney might want it, because of what's coming down the line, because of the challenge of Ulster, and he'll want to get to that pitch quickly. You know, like the first day out, we thought maybe they were slow getting into it. Second week, they're improved. Third week, you'd expect that they're going to start finding their gears now. But this is a big test against a Donegal team who, as you've said, have started like the clappers with the 2 wins that they've already got.
They've been really impressive, very impressive from Donegal. Watched the game with Kerry again back there this morning, and 10 different scorers against Kerry. Like they have threats everywhere. Oisín Gallant, Kieran Thompson, Ryan McHugh, Paddy McBrearty coming on for Langan, kicking a couple of points. The O'Donnell brought, like they have Pater Morgan scored. Like, now I know Pater Morgan is nominally named in the corner or will be kind of picked in the full back line, but his ability to get up the field, the pace that they have, their ability to win ball in the air, their athleticism, it does seem to be a little bit ahead of everybody else. As we were saying, to start the campaign with 2 out of 2 wins and to have Kerry Dublin as your notches on the bedpost, that is some going now. Like, the only thing from a Donegal Armagh perspective, there's nothing between them. If you go back last year, I don't know, did they meet in the McKenna Cup in the last iteration of that? I think they did. I'd need to check it. But they obviously met in the league. They met in the league final and they met in the Ulster final. So they drew in the athletic grounds in an absolute cracker of a game. Donegal won by a single point in the league final. And then they met in the Ulster final and went to extra time and penalties. So anybody that says that they can say without any fair contradiction who's going to win here is, you know, I think we'll take that with a pinch of salt. The one thing you probably would have to say in their defence is they're nigh on unbeatable in Ballybuffet. I can't remember the last time they've lost a game there. They're at home, they're flying. So you would imagine that the odds are stacked in their favour.
Yeah, and look, the stakes aren't as high for this one either, Tomás, that being said. But I do think for Jim McGuinness, he seems to have found a rhythm that gets the best out of his best footballers. Rory is right. They've got attacking threats from everywhere. But if you're looking for a team who move the ball quickly, but who can score and turn it on like that, Donegal look like they have it.
They have. If you look defensively, and I think defensively, like you see, Jim McGuinness has mentioned it a few times, there's a lot more one-on-one situations. If there's only 11 allowed back, then there should be that little bit more space, and they work the ball until they get creative one-on-one, and they'll take you on every single time. They have worked extremely hard on their one-on-one from a defensive point of view, but they've also worked extremely hard they don't miss too many. They have great kickers. They don't miss too many scores in front of goal. If you watch back on the games, they're clinical in front of in the post, and I think they have put a huge emphasis on that. There was an amount of talk about, and they are excellent at it with the 2-pointers that Donegal would be excellent. Haven't seen a huge amount of it, but it's the pace that they play with. They get themselves into positions quickly, and more often than not, if they take a shot at goal, they're scoring it. And I think they have been excellent. I think Sean Patton, his kickouts have been brilliant. It's something, I don't know, the goalies, you have Ethan Rafferty that'll be playing with Armagh, and he was outstanding against Tyrone, outstanding. But I call me a traditionalist, call me whatever you like. I don't agree. I don't like goalies coming up the field. I think it's just wrong. I think the whole basis of the rules coming in was to create more one-on-one challenges. And look what it's done. The excitement that is already created with no back pass to the goalie in your own half. Why then give the advantage of an extra man up the pitch? And the teams that are doing it are dead right doing it. Of course you do it. But like it'd be like offering a basketball team 6-5 in the opposition half. Sure, what? I don't get it. I just do not get it. I think it's not natural to our game. It's not natural for a goalie. And look, you'll have Rory Beggan will do it. Niall Morgan will do it. Every goalkeeper will do it. We'll all do it because there is a huge benefit of doing it and maximising the potential it has there. You'd be silly not to. But I think they made a mistake by bringing it in the first place, because I think it's going to be really hard to get rid of it now.
Well, it is, because they've all adapted to it so well. And that's the difficulty now. Like, you're right. And there are going to be traditionalists who are going to say, I just don't like the look of this. But working and it's bringing more scores in the game, then there's no way they're going to take it out.
Yeah, it's not. It's more than not liking it. I don't like the look of it. I'd be traditional like that, but I just don't think it's not fair. Like, I mean, if you have 11v11, then if you're coaching a team, you'll say, right, push out on them, push out.
Yeah.
They don't have a spare man. Go after them early. Whereas if they have that extra man and you're playing a team that are very, very well coached, some teams aren't very well coached as others. But you can be sure the likes of Armagh are extremely well coached. You won't pick them off. The argument will be that you could have a goal chance. And we've seen a couple of them in the Roscommon game against Down. There was a very good. You won't see, in my opinion, too many occasions like that. And they're too well coached to be cut out like that. And I think it's too much of an advantage for certain teams to have that. You know, I think a lot of teams will just move the goalie up in a quarterback position and plank him there and have him as an out ball. But the other teams then, they will use Ethan Rafferty, they'll use him as a scoring threat, and they're dead right to use him, and he's excellent at it, and they'll keep doing it. And why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But I just think it's unfair. I think it gives the advantage, and it gives other opposition teams who are defending, I suppose, more of a kind of a just sit back and defend it deeper. So I think it's going away from what the rules were put in place for.
Yeah. It's a direct consequence, though, Rory, of you are trying to implement one part of the game to make one part better. Somebody is always going to find another way to change that up and bring another style of another sport into the game to be able to complement this. This was inevitable. It's like a consequence, a direct consequence of somebody actually trying to make the game better and annoying some people.
But I think, yes, Jacqui, but I do think you've got to take the rules in as a suite and a package. I agree with Tomás. I don't know whether this was some sort of sop to maybe some of the doomsdayers or some of the naysayers. And I definitely do think it is still contributing to shorter passages of play of keep ball, and absolutely not as many passages of play and keep ball, but they're still happening. And this particular facet of the rules is a major contributory factor to it. I think if you look at the rules overall, I mean, the general impression I get from them, to be fair to Jim Gavin, Eamon, James Horn, all the Colm Collins, all the really good people on it, I think what they've tried to do is they've tried to design a game that's fit for purpose in the 21st century. We know the way children are nowadays. We know the way kids are nowadays, like devices, PlayStations, Xboxes. And we know the proliferation and the obsession that a lot of people have with stats and figures and all of those types of things. So what they've done, I think, has made the game, yes, much more intricate and much more pedantic. There's lots of different, parts of this rule, and this rule affects that rule, and then you have this line, and you can take that back out. And maybe there's a simplification that will evolve over time, and maybe part of that simplification is a tweak and a tidy up by the time we get to the end of the league and say, look, this 12v11 just in the round, we have enough of a body of evidence now. We may look to try and tweak that and just basically no passing back to the goalkeeper whatsoever. And he just stays within his own 20-metre line or something along those lines. But I think they have given themselves the option at least to address that by the time we get to the end of the National League. And I think it might be something that they go after. But I suppose everything they're going to do, and one of the big things we hear from Jim Gavin and that committee, is it's all being driven by data. So they are looking at that to make the most educated and the most informed decisions that they can possibly make with the best interests of the sport at heart. And you have to trust that they will. That's what will happen, because there's nobody can tell me that this isn't a better game already than what we saw for the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think that's fair. I don't think that this is the end of it either. And I'm sure we will come back to it on a multiple occasions.
But your rules, exactly, Jacqui, you're right. It isn't the end of it. But your rules should constantly be evolving. I think what happens, and I've said this ad nauseum, what happens in Gaelic games is, right, Jim Gavin's committee, like we saw it when the black card came in, right? Oh, that's the black card in, or that's grand, that's that done, right? Let's all move on. That's not how you do it. Because the trends will change. Coaches will adapt. They'll start to find other little weak points and little stress points, and they'll figure out other ways around it, because that's what coaches do. That's their job, to try and bend and twist the rules and look at little grey areas to make the best advantage to their teams that they possibly can. And that's why your rule makers, your legislators have to stay on top of it. We've seen it. You and I work on rugby from time to time. We've seen new rules come in nearly every year, different changes to the laws. They've changed things like the line out. They've changed things like the kicking of the ball. Like, they constantly look to try and, right, look, that didn't work. We need to make a tweak there. That didn't work. This now is a trend that's emerging. Okay, how can we reverse that trend? Right, let's change that particular aspect of the law. So that's where GAA has to get to. Now, my understanding is that this is going to be a standing committee, and this is going to remain in situ to monitor this on an ongoing basis. And I think that should be welcomed if that is the case.
Yeah. And one other thing I did notice, that this week they've said to the referees that they can no longer speak in the media on it. I would hope that come the end of the league, they would sit down with the referees and actually ask them their opinion, Tomás, because it's one thing to say to the referees, I don't want you giving your opinion in public and saying you like this, you don't like this, but you'd like to think there is an element of consultation at the end of it that says, hey lads, what did you think worked there?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you have to get the opinion of those who are going to be reffing the games. I'm thinking, to be fair, somebody said to me, and it made perfect sense, the ones that are causing most concern at the moment probably are the 50-yard descent rules, and people see that on television, and you don't have a clear understanding of why it happened or what happened, what exactly was there, and people don't understand the rules, maybe the older generation in particular. Then you have the 3-on-3, which is always causing, I guarantee you, towards the end of the league, Jacqui, teams will be so well used to it and so well drilled in how to work it, you'll have less and less of that, and it won't become an issue. It will at club level, but you'll be a foolish ref at club level not to land on without two sideline men anymore, because they're the fellas. Like, I do it myself. I'm coaching and I'm reffing games, and fellas start roaring at me, and I start looking behind. It's like trying to pick out a fish in a pond. You can't figure out who's after crossing what line, because you're keeping an eye on the ball. But look, in terms of writing up the rules, and there's been a lot of talk, I'm actually glad that I didn't know that the refs aren't allowed to talk in the media, but that's a positive, I think.
But it is in one sense, Tomás, right? But the other thing that I would maybe flip that on its head, it's all fine to muzzle the referees at the minute, because look, this is an ongoing experiment and we have to see it through to its conclusion. But in that experiment is education. And one of the things that will help people get a better understanding, like, okay, so we're going to muzzle referees, but we're also not going to allow the audio from the referees to be public.
Agree, yeah.
So, like, we're not allowing any education take place here. So
100%. I think, Rory, refs should be mic'd up. It's worked in
But
a
they
few
are.
games.
Yeah.
People get a clear understanding.
Yeah.
Players are actually watching those games and they get an understanding of where the referees are coming from. And we have outstanding referees, and by God,
Outstanding.
do they know it inside out. But when you hear it on TV, I think it adds so much to it. And I think it's a no-brainer, and I think it would be good for the FRC and for everybody else who's trying to sell these rules. At least when it's explained, it won't have the same, like you meet people down the street and they'll say, for God's sake, I saw that it was good and the game was fast and there's higher scoring and all that. There's a lot of break and passages in play. Maybe if they had that understanding was there, I agree fully with you. I'd love to see it.
Like Tomás, just on that, I'm sorry, Jacqui, I won't dwell on this now because we need to move on. But one really interesting aspect was when I was watching the Kerry Donegal game there this morning, and Colin Mullaney was doing the commentary, and Colin's obviously up in the commentary box, or it might have been an off tube, I don't know. And the Donegal player takes a shot goes wide. Shane Ryan is walking out to put the ball on the tee. And the next thing, I think it was Brendan Cawley who was the ref. Was it Brendan Cawley that was reffing this? Excellent ref now again, right? A really, really good referee, by the way. But next thing, he blew his whistle and he called Paddy McBrearty over and he handed him the ball, and Paddy was kind of obviously making his mind up. He said, look, he elected to go for a 2-pointer, which he kicked. Kerry, and Kerry lost the match, I think, by what, a point? Mm-hmm. But he kicked this 2-pointer. Now, I have a fairly strong suspicion somebody abused him from the line. That's what I think happened.
I don't know what that was actually given
I think he got abuse.
I remember it.
I think he got abuse from the sideline. Now, nobody knew what was going on. You could even see the Kerry crowd going, you could even almost hear a kerfuffle in the crowd going, what's happening there?
And there wasn't much argument from the... Because they probably were told straight away what it was.
He just called me a this or a that, you know?
Yeah, I remember it,
Yeah. But I do think people need to know. And look, Rory, you're right. I did notice even with the rugby recently, they have started putting up on the screen exactly what the penalty was for. You're hearing the referee, and it's a much more engaging experience for the person who's at the game. Because listen, as the three of us all know, you're going to games long enough. Often the people who are at the game are the people who know least about it. You're always texting somebody going, what happened there? What happened there? So the more engaging we make it, the better. Correct. Anyway, come here. We could get bogged down on this all day. So let me just finish off on the bottom end of the table then, Tomás, because kind of two key games this weekend in maybe what already feels like a relegation battle at this point of the year. For Mayo Tyrone, certainly you would feel that the loser of this game already feels incredibly vulnerable this weekend.
Yeah, similar to Dublin and Kerry. If you lose, you are kind of putting yourself in a position where you have to win your next game. Mayo, I suppose, are in a bit of bother already, and it's not really a bit of bother. You know, it depends where you are and what you want to achieve. I think Mayo, the fact that Galway have won the Connacht Championship in the last number of years, I think they are being questioned that little bit more. There is that little bit more pressure involved this year. They've lost a couple of players. Players have stepped away. They will need a win. I don't think Tyrone, they've had a new management in. There's an amount of young players coming through. The talent is great, but they won't be happy with the way they played against Armagh, albeit Armagh were excellent on the night, but Tyrone will look for a reply, and I think Mayo could be under a bit of pressure here. I think definitely, Jacqui, whoever loses that game will be looking at themselves, and that's where the interesting side of it is. We all know how competitive Division 1 is. We all know that every team up there, at the same time, their aim to win Division 1, but they certainly want to stay up in Division 1 because you learn so much from the teams that you play, and the pace that you play, and the physicality. Everything is as good as you will get before championship, and the league runs straight into the championship. So it's brilliant because it guarantees us competitive matches on TV and watching it. And I think Mayo could be under a bit of pressure there. I think Tyrone will want to turn the screw a small bit. And don't get me wrong, there's a running joke that you write Mayo off at your peril, and that's true. But they do seem to be a completely different team than they were 3-4 years ago.
I did think, though, Tomás, that Paul Flynn made a very good point when he was on with you last week in relation to, I watched the game against Dublin, and I thought they played really well in spells, but they definitely do lack experience in the forward line. And Paul Flynn's point, I think, was in and around the fact that there was a lot of inexperience in that forward line, trying to find their feet, trying to find their way around intercounty football, trying to find their way around, obviously, the new rules and the way the game is being played. And they were obviously up against a very experienced Galway team at this stage. And having an Aidan O'Shea or having one of those sort of older hands in there to just,
You'll probably see him this weekend, and maybe Jordan Flynn as well, I'd say, Rory, which does make a huge
Jordan
difference.
Flynn, Diarmuid O'Connor. But it's one thing with Mayo, lads, and look, I take it as a compliment. It's a tough job. You're trying to use the league to unearth as many players that you can. But the amount, I'd love to see a list of the amount of players that Mayo have tried in the last 3 or 4 years in terms of league, and have a comparison across all counties, the top county teams, and what they're trying. And don't get me wrong, I know the numbers are huge, but it just seems that every team, I suppose, look, Dublin are trying to find players, and every team have a different target of what they want to achieve out of the league. But for me, I think Mayo need to get a settled team in there and back them and try to get as many games and get them in playing a system of football that they're happy with, so that they can compete by the time championship comes around. And I think, look, injury, Sigerson, everything throws that out the window. Players coming back late throws it out the window. So it's very difficult at the best of times. I get that. But look, I've no doubt I'd have great time for Mayo. I think they have unbelievable footballers, but I just think they need a couple of wins, definitely, because they're a team that need to make a stand in Connacht this year, definitely.
Let's finish off on another team then that need a win, because Galway are absolutely flying with 2 from 2, but Derry going into this game, Tomás, like Rory touched on it earlier, they're probably unlucky to not have a win, because they'll definitely will have felt that they should have won the Kerry game. But suddenly they're staring down the barrel of this game against a team who are going really well, and they're thinking, where are we going to find our win?
And the defending champions, lest we forget.
True.
Yeah. And look, I think Galway have been excellent since the start of the league. I think that we've all spoken about the fact that they've had a full complement of players to pick from. Galway up close are a big physical team, and they have been drilled and worked on for the last number of 4 or 5 years. And I suppose they have been close enough, very close, to actually making the final step. And obviously that's the target for them again. Derry should have probably won that game against Kerry above. There's no doubt. They had way more shots at goal. They had way more opportunities. They didn't take them, and they were punished, and they were clinically punished in the end by Kerry. But it is like, Jacqui, I go back to where every single team are. I think Derry will want to stay up. New management, I think it would be key for them to stay up, because of the fact that with what's happened there in the last number of years, you're just giving people an opportunity to talk that things aren't right. And as you would have seen from last year, everybody was talking about what was going on in the background in the media, when in fact, I don't think there was too much going on in the background. They were just trying to play their own game. But that talk does, I don't care what players say, it does seep in some form. But they will. I mean, look, you have 3 or 4 teams that need a win in Division 1 right now. You can say Kerry, you can say Dublin, you can say Mayo, you can say Derry, you can say Tyrone. They need wins, and that's where the competitive edge will come into it. But I was impressed with Derry. I think McGuigan was excellent, but the way they moved the ball, the physicality they have around midfield, Tohal was outstanding. They were moving the ball at pace. They were kicking the ball long as well. That was probably the best game of football I've seen in a long time, was that actual game with Kerry. But yeah, it'll lead into a good weekend, because I think Derry aren't a million miles off from clicking, and I know with the Paddy Tally involved from the start, I think he'll be eager to get a win on his notch, definitely.
They'll have their work cut out though, Jacqui. Salt Hill, now it'll be under lights again. Pitch not great, let's be perfectly honest. It isn't in good nick. It obviously takes a bit of a battering when your hurlers and footballers are on it 1 week to the next. It's very hard to get any work done on it. As going back to the weather again, the weather forecast is, look, the weather's always bad in Salt Hill, so like it will be winter football. Did that make a bit of a difference? Look, it's a leveler for both teams. I think Galway have probably been the most impressive team themselves in Donegal to a certain extent. Shane Walsh looks a little bit refreshed. A very short campaign for Crokes, obviously not getting out of Dublin for the first time in a while. Has that maybe added a couple of strings to his bow? You have Paul Conroy. I don't know what he puts in the porridge every day. That man is just he's like Peter Pan. He's just getting younger. Like, he's playing incredible stuff. And they have, I think, where they have stolen a big march is, and this is something I suppose that we thought we'd see a little bit more from Donegal. No, we are seeing it from Donegal. We haven't seen it from Kerry at all. I think Kerry had only 1 2-pointer. I think Sean O'Shea late on the last day. But Galway's ability to kick distance, but Galway's personnel on distance shooters is a massive advantage. Massive. And at home in Salt Hill, probably only see one winner.
Yeah. Sounds like it. All right, lads, we will have to leave it there. Tomás, thanks a million for being with us. Myself and Rory will be back after the weekend to look back on round 3 of the Allianz Football League. Wherever you're going, enjoy the matches and we'll talk to you next week.
Lead by a point, and there's the whistle, it's over.